the real, raw, honest conversations about parenting teenagers in today's world. No filters, no sugarcoating, just truth, compassion, and practical insight from experts, educators, and parents who are right in the trenches alongside you. This podcast is where parents come to hear the conversations they didn't even know they needed. My mission is simple: to help you feel supported, informed, and empowered so you can build the connection with your teen that you truly want. If you want to go deeper into this work with me, stay until the end, and I will share how you can connect with me. From my heart to yours, thank you for being here, for doing the hard work of parenting, and for choosing to grow right alongside your teen. Welcome back to another episode of Parenting Teens Advice Redefined, where we challenge the old ways of parenting teens and have the conversations that actually create connection, healing, and change. Because around here, we believe it's not them, it's you, but that's where the magic happens. Today's conversation is one every parent who is navigating separation, divorce, co-parenting, or high conflict communication needs to hear. My guest today is Sol, founder of Best Interests, on an AI-powered communication app helping parents pause before reacting, reduce conflict, and protect children from the emotional weight of adult conversations. The app has been called life-saving by families and was recently nominated for a Webby Award, helping parents filter toxic communication and keep the focus where it belongs, on the kids. Today, we're talking about the invisible emotional script kids absorb, the messages we send without realizing it, and how one regulated pause can completely change the emotional climate of a family. Welcome, Sol Kennedy. It's so nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Cheryl. It's an honor to be here with you.
It's such an important topic, but I want to start first. So let's hear, Sol Kennedy, what's going on and what's the point of all this?
Well, I'm feeling good today because it's finally warm here, and we got to spend a family day in the pool for the first time for the season. So that's, for me, I love the water. So it was great to jump in the water with the kids. And I'm a father of two kids. And, you know, if you had told me 6 years ago that I would be running an app for co-parents and changing their lives, I wouldn't have believed you. And yet here I am. And that's what I'm doing. And 6 years ago, I was finding myself really struggling. My co-parent and I were sending lots of messages back and forth. We kind of just ended up in the same dynamics, honestly, that we were in when we were married. But now it was a little bit more, challenged because there were two homes and lots of stress. And I just remember this one night of lying in bed and going to sleep. Sleep is super precious when you're co-parenting. And I heard this ding on my phone, and I noticed my heart start racing, and there was sweat on my brow. And I because I recognized that sound as a sound coming from my co-parenting app. Mm-hmm. And I knew it was a message from my co-parent. And because of our dynamic, I knew that I would have to read that message that night. So I kind of had to wake myself back up. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to sleep until I'd figured out, maybe even phoned a friend, how to respond. Yeah. And so I realized that I was trapped by this system. I was already doing everything I thought I needed to do. I was using a co-parenting app, right? That's what the judge said was going to help conflict. Mm-hmm. Wasn't working. And I just didn't feel like we were progressing to the next chapter, that we were this kumbaya of we're getting along and now we've readjusted into this new business-like relationship. It just wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to about 3 years ago, I had heard about this thing called AI, and I was playing around with OpenAI or ChatGPT. I thought, wow, it'd be fun to use this for reading bedtime stories to the kids. We're reading the same book again and again every night. What would it be like to have them come up collaboratively with a new story using AI? Did that, super fun. We had a great time. And that night I thought, gosh, AI seems to really understand language. Maybe it would understand what I'm going through in terms of the communication. Like, could I feel maybe a little bit more seen? And sure enough, I uploaded the messages that we'd sent that day, and I instantly felt understood, seen. I had an idea of what my next steps would be. And also in that moment, I realized this is something that I want to bring to co-parenting. This is a solution that I think we all can benefit from. And so that was the spark that started Best Interest.
I love that because, and I have to say, when we talk about AI, I want listeners to be very cautious of, oh, okay, well, I'll just jump off here and start chatting with ChatGPT, because I learned the hard way that ChatGPT, unless programmed and prompted properly, is a yes man.
Yes.
And will tell you everything you want to hear that makes you look amazing and wonderful. And I just created this whole new bestie. I'm like, oh yeah, I want bacon and eggs and I'm on a diet. And he would say, no problem. You deserve a break. Take it. No, that wasn't right.
Maybe because we're paying him $20 a month to be our friend. Maybe that's why.
Yeah. So I want to caution parents when they're hearing that there are boundaries around things like this before you just jump off and think that this is something you can do solo. I think that's really important to hear.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, and to take you into that too, in my own experience using ChatGPT with co-parenting, it's pretty good at understanding some of the dynamics that come into play. It understands language, but like you pointed out, one of the things using some of these Claude or ChatGPT, one of the problems is that you can kind of create yourself or your own silo where it's not going to really push back. It takes all of the information you give it, and then it creates this kind of fantasy world where it's going to have your back. And that's a problem when you're co-parenting, because at the end of the day, you got to learn how to come together. You got to learn how to find peace. Peace comes from pushing back, right? So the partner that you choose in this really is going to push back and say, actually, Cheryl, there's a better way of saying this. Because of the data that we have, this is going to come across in a certain way. Like it needs a way to educate you on how to communicate more effectively in co-parenting. Yeah. And so that's what we've tried to do in Best Interest, is we've created a system that is trained on the dynamics of co-parenting, and it's trained to push back when you're likely to shoot yourself in the foot. Yeah. So that protects you from yourself sometimes. We're all capable of getting triggered and saying things we don't mean. And Best Interest will help prevent that from happening by pushing back when it needs to.
And when you talk about the ping in the middle of the night, does this app help parents create a boundary around time when you text and when the messages get sent? Like, is there something there that you're not getting that ping in the middle of the night?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of boundaries myself. I've learned them in this process. I wasn't raised understanding boundaries or even knowing that term. And it was the divorce that helped me personally learn how to set them, learn how to love myself so that I would love myself enough so that I could set them with people in my life. And so when we were developing Best Interest, that played a big role. I believe that you as a co-parent should be able to set communication boundaries with your ex, and also stay in contact in support of the kids. And so we do that a couple different ways. One is every parent deserves the ability to say, this is how I would like to be talked to, regardless of the type of ex that we have. We should be able to dictate the types of messages that come to us. Yeah. And at the end of the day, family court just wants us to be collaborative, and they want us to talk about the kids. They actually would prefer us not to get into the past or resentments. That's not co-parenting.
No.
So what Best Interest does is we actually actively review and filter all messages that are coming to you, and anything that's not specifically child-focused and isn't good co-parenting, you don't see it on the first take.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that allows you to, one, trust the notifications that are coming to you. They're safer, right? When you get pinged from Best Interest, you know it's coming from your ex, but you know that if it's really bad and toxic, you're not going to see it. So it's already been reviewed by us to ensure that it reaches a certain bar of collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
You can always review the original message, right? So whenever you get a filtered message, there's a little symbol that says there's something more to the message. And you can, when you're away from your kids, maybe the kids are at school or you're with a therapist, you can go in and review that original message. Very important for our own healing to really, be able to dive into the triggers and whatnot. But in the day-to-day, you don't really need all that communication. You just need to know time, place, Johnny forgot his backpack, that sort of logistics.
Yeah.
And so we help you focus on that. And in a way, that's you setting a boundary with your ex, even if they're not the kind of person that would have listened.
Yeah.
And to your point earlier about time boundaries and my own experience of going to bed at night, you can, for the first time, set a time boundary with your ex and say, for example, I only want to receive one message from you every day. Depending on your co-parent, that may not come off very well, and they might end up sending you 50 instead of 20. What you can do with Best Interest is, because we're reviewing every message, we will queue all those messages up. And if there's something that comes through that is particularly time sensitive, like something to do with an upcoming exchange, maybe they're running late, you want to know that, right? Mm-hmm. That's helpful information. Mm-hmm. Or, oh my gosh, Johnny's at the hospital, I need you right now. Oh my gosh, I really want to know that, mm-hmm. right? Those things, they'll come through. They'll break past that because you need to know that to be a good co-parent. Everything else, it gets queued up and you get that one message a day. So you can handle it maybe when the kids are at school or whenever you're feeling more resourced. So you feel like you're more in charge of what's going on.
That is incredible. Right there is just worth the price of admission. That's amazing. I love it. So tell us then what difference you saw prior to using this app for yourself and post using this app in the relationship and your kids, and the relationship of you and your co-parent, and how your kids were developing through this.
Yeah, well, one thing that I love that the way you frame that about the kids, because I know from my experience, my kids, what they really want from me, the best thing I can give them is my time and my attention. If I'm on my phone or I'm stressed about an upcoming hearing or whatever, I'm not present with them. And that sucks for them. They can feel that. They can feel when I'm not paying attention. Mm-hmm. And so early on, I started noticing that in myself, that I was constantly glued to my phone, navigating this really high stakes relationship. I was feeling it in my body, and they're picking up on that. So that's not good for them. When I started learning how to step away from that dynamic, and it started changing. So here's the thing. We are responsible we can take charge of our co-parenting dynamic. Whether or not you're using an app or not, you are making choices every day about how you engage. Mm-hmm. And, it's so easy to fall into a victim consciousness when we're especially dealing with someone that we might call a narcissist or whatnot. But that's not helpful. I'm a big supporter of learning how we can take ownership of the dynamic that we have. So to give you an example, if your co-parent sends you a big, long tirade about what you did wrong and why, and you respond back with a very gray rock sort of response, like, okay, you're not giving them the dynamic that they were maybe looking for. Mm-hmm. And when you change the way you respond, when you're not hooking on to those emotional triggers, then the dynamic has to change. And so that's you taking power back. Mm-hmm. And so with Best Interest, we're helping you do that. And I'd like to think what we're doing is, in my own experience, I spent a lot of time looking at YouTube videos, reading books, understanding Bill Eddy's BIF method, like really diving into, okay, how can I get to a place where I'm not so triggered all the time by this type of communication? And that was helpful, but it took a long time. Best Interest is the shortcut to that. Mm-hmm. We're doing that work for you so that you can have peace today. And I think we learn so much better when we're not constantly being triggered all the time. And so we're giving our parents an opportunity to have a little bit more peace today so that they can also learn how to navigate this relationship while showing up better in this dynamic. And what we're finding in the feedback we're getting is that when you use best interest, then the whole dynamic shifts. Even if your co-parent isn't using the app themselves, if they're just using text and you're using the app, you're responding differently, which makes them respond differently. The heat in the relationship goes down, and all it took was you deciding to make a change. And that's really powerful.
Yeah, it is. And in talking to some parents who are going through this, I always kind of reverted back to, who do you want to show up as? Who do you want to be as a parent, period? And all the external input doesn't matter if you stand sturdy in who you want to be. It's almost like, you can liken it to road rage. You go through road rage and somebody cuts you off, and you can either say, well, maybe they're on the way to the hospital, or maybe they've had a bad day, and you can choose to just turn the radio on or put on a podcast and you regulate your own nervous system. And I think if parents every day can wake up and say, who do I want to be for my kids today, even if it's just today, and if last night was shit, you can choose that every single day when you wake up. And I think if you stand sturdy in that, I think that's really what you're saying. Even if one person's choosing to use the app, that's one person who is choosing to show up as the parent they need to be.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of the fact that my home has become a home of peace for my kids, for myself. We feel safe here. And that wasn't always the case. But I think it's so important to find that level of safety for our kids, because they're going through so much too. They might not know how to express it or even share that they're going through a lot, but they're navigating switching homes. There's a lot of tumultuation in their lives. And so providing them an anchor of safety where you are feeling more grounded and safer, then they're going to pick up on that. And they're going to feel safer too. But if you're constantly, bickering and bringing in the conflict in your head, even if you're not involving them, they're picking up on it, then there's no safety there. So I definitely advocate learning how to do that yourself so that you can just show up better and give them that feeling of safety that they need. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, we know what a toxic text looks like, and we know when we're being outwardly inappropriate. But what about segue into your invisible scripts that kids absorb? Talk about like how they internalize some of the comments and even the tone and the sigh and the eye roll. Like, how are they absorbing this?
Well, our kids, I believe, are extremely perceptive. In fact, I think every human, all adults, we're all very perceptive. We just along the way learned how to shut it off. And one of the ways that we learn how to shut it off is by our parents gaslighting. So I've caught myself doing this. I say something, or let's say my kid says something and I feel like a little triggered by it, and I might react, or maybe I don't even outwardly react. I just feel it. And I try to control, the reaction.
Yeah.
I've been called out by my daughter, especially, she's getting older, so she's more aware and she's more willing to speak up when she feels it. And the very natural thing for us adults is, oh no, you didn't see that. I'm nothing's going on. I'm fine. But that's not what you're doing. Is you just told her perception is wrong. And now she has to internally figure out, am I just being too sensitive? And then she internalizes there's something wrong with her, which I never want to do. I want her to believe in herself because she is amazing, right? Our kids are amazing. They're so perceptive. And so when my kids call me out in that way, I take a moment. It's so important to take moments. You don't have to respond right away. In fact, you can always tell your kids, well, thanks for that question. I'm going to think about that a little bit, and I'll get back to you. Thanks for letting me know. And that gives you a chance to like step away from the trigger, think about it, and then come back and repair. That's one little trick. And the other is just taking a breath. We're so quick sometimes to just like want to shoo it away. And if you just learn how to take a deep breath and then respond with as much honesty as you can muster. And it's so difficult when you're doing co-parenting because you don't want to put them in the middle, and it feels sometimes like you have to hide so much. But at the end of the day, the more we can show up with our honesty, yeah, actually, you're right. I was feeling a little challenged in that moment, and here's why. That rewards your kids in that they now feel seen and understood and validated, and they feel connected to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I say this quite often is, it's not your words. Watch your face, watch your tone, watch your body language. And if you feel yourself having like a visceral trigger, take that break so that you're not using, like they know. Crazy that we think they don't.
Yeah, I had probably the most triggered. I'm usually a pretty grounded person. And I'm forgetting some of the things that were going on in that day, but it felt like there was this moment where my partner, my kids were all in the kitchen. They were playing and making a lot of noise. And there was this moment that I hit my peak, and I felt like the snap about to happen, of just like, and I stopped myself and I said, you know what? I need to take a walk. And I don't know if I've ever done that. And I think my kids looked at me funny, like, hey, what? But I did it. And then when I came back, I said, guys, I was really feeling frustrated, and here's why. And, I took care of myself. I'm feeling a lot better now. But what I'm doing is I'm modeling for them that it's okay that they do that. And in fact, I kind of learned this lesson from my daughter. She just innately knows that when she's feeling super triggered, she goes to her room, focuses on her art. She has this way of just calming herself down. And I think that's really wonderful when we can model for our kids emotional regulation, and that we don't always have to be perfect. It's so much better to be able to take a break than to go into our trigger and act out on these impulses.
Yeah. And it makes me think, the uncharted territory of parenting now, but before that would be, don't you walk away from me. Don't you, And it's like, please walk away from me. Please, for the love of God, walk away from me. And you're right. Like, we give them so much permission, but there were times where I've heard parents say, we're in the middle of something, don't you walk away from me, or even spouse to spouse, when I just need to breathe. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not like, I'm coming back, but I just need to breathe. So we need to respect each other's process of regulation.
Well, and to help our kids learn what their own ways of regulating are. And so, for my daughter, I saw that early on, that she would run away when she was feeling upset and go to her room. And then I started noticing, because I was curious, that she would want to be alone and she would always be working on her art. And one day when, she wasn't in that moment, I asked her about that. So what's going on for you? When you do this, when you go to your art, does it feel calming? She's like, yes. Oh, so this is a way that you're regulating. And she's like, yeah. And so then that, for her, I would imagine that feels really validating, that her father is coming in, seeing that, not making it a bad thing, right? But helping her see that that's actually a tool that she has in her toolkit. And if it were ever something that my kid was doing that was destructive, like punching. I remember when my kids were really young, sometimes they'd hit the door really hard, and it's like, no, that's damaging the door. It's the rental. And you know, but like if they're doing that, then it's like identifying, okay, well, I can see how, you're really upset. And I bet it feels really good to just hit, but maybe we can try hitting something else. Maybe we can try hitting this pillow, or right, like learning how to redirect and validating that they're having a real experience.
Yeah.
And then saying, well, maybe there's a better way to regulate that so that we're not causing this damage or whatnot.
Yeah, or bleeding knuckles.
Yeah, real.
So in the midst of, I just want to talk about this because I have a big thought on in the early stages or sometimes long-term stages of separation and divorce, the impact it has when one parent criticizes the other parent in front of the kids. And for me, I've always said, if I'm calling you an asshole, I'm calling my kid 50% an asshole because they come from him. And as soon as I shifted my perception about what that actually is, instead of trying to defend myself against my ex, I want, he's just being a jerk, blah, blah, blah. It's like the impact that has. Can you talk about the impact that has on our kids?
Well, when we speak poorly or speak about adult conflict or adult conversations with our kids, it's actually really beautiful that it works the way it does. Our kids, or all people, when we're little, we have these genes that help protect us. Mm-hmm. When you are with your caregiver, you are loyal to them. And as adults, we kind of forget this, but I remember the feeling of what it was like looking up to my parents. They're like God. Mm-hmm. You don't really question them. It's just like they're the only ones that really exist. And it's a survival thing, probably, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you disconnected from your parents, you'd die. So it makes sense why kids look up to their parents so much. Mm-hmm. But here's what you're doing when you talk badly about the other parent in this sort of situation. You're literally threatening their survival instinct, right? Mm-hmm. So like you're saying, well, your dad's unsafe. He's being really mean to me and he's really unsafe. And then you're like, at the kid's thinking, okay, well now I have to go back to that house and now I'm kind of feeling unsafe, but I need to feel safe. And you're just putting them into such a bind. And I think adults, we forget how much it puts our kids. They don't think like adults. They think like kids. Yeah. And we forget that.
That is such a great way to put it. I love that. That's golden. I love that. And yeah, that is their safe place. I just love that perspective. That's awesome. So just, can you, and this is maybe parents not on the app yet, can you guide a parent when they are like a practical tool prior to sending the text, responding to, or even possibly creating a conflict over text? Can you give them something, okay, do this, this, and this before you send the text?
Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to learn how to set limits with yourself. When we go into trigger, which we all can do, it's a moment that we're not thinking rationally. So you can read all the books you want. You can hear all of the podcast episodes and have all the techniques down and be ready to go. But the moment you're in trigger, all that's out the window and you're responding in the way that you probably were programmed when you were a kid to respond, honestly, informed by trauma. Yep. And so, short of actually digging into and healing that trauma, which is causing us to get triggered in the first place, that can sometimes take a long time and involve working with a therapist. The best thing we can do is just set internal boundaries that are so simple that we can follow when we're in trigger. And the best one that I know about is just taking a break. Whatever that looks like to you, make a rule for yourself, simple rule, regardless of how you're feeling. When you get a message from your co-parent and you see it, even if it's a very simple message or it's not triggering at all, take a break. Read it, put down your phone. That just make that so dead easy, and it's like a muscle memory thing that you just do that. You just put down the phone. Maybe you walk around the room. Maybe you go for a walk, get more exercise. Maybe this conflict is good for you physically. And just have something that you'll do that you'll remember in the moments where you are triggered, so that you do have a break. And when you take that break, what you're doing is you're disconnecting that more fear-driven limbic system from taking control of your words. Because when we're responding from that place, we're not thinking rationally, and we're more than likely to get into these dynamics with our ex that aren't helpful for anyone. And they might end up presented in court, which is not helpful for anyone. So first, take a break. And then, the other thing that I would recommend in these situations is that just understanding that the way you show up in this relationship, being your most challenging relationship probably, is the way that you actually will show up in all the other challenging relationships in your life. It's so easy to look at this relationship and say, oh my God, it's terrible. But if you find yourself getting triggered by them often or running your mouth, you're probably gonna, if you really look closely, you're probably doing that at work too. You're probably, and it behooves you to be curious about that and to learn how to get in touch with that inner part that maybe needs a little bit of healing. And when you do that work, when you heal that trauma, then you become a much better communicator in all aspects of your life. So I like to see my ex as my biggest teacher, that she is helping me see the parts in myself that I haven't yet healed. And that not only is a really positive reframe on the whole situation that takes me out of victimhood, but it also reminds me that, oh yeah, I have work to do here. Thank you for the lesson. And that returns me back to my frontal lobe. So I can respond better.
So good. So for parents listening now, what would you say to them right now if they're listening going, oh my God, I have unintentionally exposed my kids to all this conflict and emotional tension? Where can they start right now to repair?
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, today, if we didn't do it yesterday, today's a great day. And I would say that we all have been there. There's this trajectory that most co-parents go through, which is you're leading up to divorce, super stressful. We don't know how many years, but it probably was not a good time in your life. And then you go through divorce. Maybe you're going to court. Maybe you're separating finances. My gosh, that's a lot of pressure and stress. You're having to find a new home, maybe even change jobs, maybe even change locations. My gosh, everything is shifting. There's no stability. You're not going to be at your best. No one is. And so to just be gentle with yourself in this moment, that it's hard for everybody. And it's okay that we didn't do it right in the first place. But listening to this podcast, being open to learning and changing, awareness is the first step. So you've already made the first step by being curious about this situation and realizing that everyone can change. I grew up with this funny notion that people don't change. I think you hear that sometimes in movies or whatnot. That's bollocks. We can all change. There's so much capacity in the human mind to shift our perspective and show up differently in life. And just be patient with yourself and realize that this is a moment that you can take and turn into a really great life. And you just take it one day at a time.
Yeah, you get to choose. Listen, 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been I didn't even stand up in front of two people to have a conversation. So can you change? Yeah, you can change. If you want it bad enough, you can choose to change. I love that. And we all, it's so funny, when I was preparing, I was like, we've all sent that text that wasn't supposed to go somewhere. And as soon as you hit send, it's like the war is going right through your body, like the sweat and tossing the phone. I still remember the couple of times that I did it. So we've all done it. We all have felt it. It's what you do after that moment. And I think you're really addressing that here. Yeah, we all make mistakes, but yeah, I'm aware I just did something and I'm not going to brush that under the rug because I need to deal with it.
Well, and those momentary lapses in judgment honestly can come back to bite you in a really big way. And I have spoken with so many co-parents, and I've experienced myself going into a courtroom thinking you're going to be talking about one thing and then having a text message printed out and brought before the judge. And you're like, oh yeah. Oh, I sent that. Oh, shoot. That was 2 years. Oh, no. And it's out of context, right? Judge doesn't care. They're going to look at that text and it might paint you in a certain light. The other side probably is presenting you in a certain light and they're using that as an example. All it takes is one. And so, yeah, you know, it's not a good situation. It's a really tense situation to be in to have that type of message lurking in your background.
That's so good.
It's one of the reasons why Best Interest has that tone guardian built in. We actually will review every message that you send with the lens of how will this look to a judge? Hopefully you never end up there. That's our goal when we work with parents is we hope you'll never end up in court. And we think that we can help prevent that in some ways. But if you do, all your messages have been reviewed. So you've been given a chance to tone it down and to appear calmer, which can really be very protective for these types of high conflict situations.
Well, no wonder you won awards on this. This is incredible. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, is there something I didn't ask that you really wanted to share?
Oh, no, this has been a really delightful conversation. Yeah, it's a journey, right? Going through co-parenting. And I didn't know what it was going to be like before I went into it. And looking back, I can say that I've grown a tremendous amount. Really proud of that. But it's been a lot of hard work. And so if I were speaking to that guy 6 years ago that was really struggling, what I would say is that you'll get through this and you'll be better and you'll have grown and it'll be worth it. But take some breaths and slow it down. And you know, it's gonna suck for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. So good. We just need to keep having these conversations because we know the statistics. So someone listening to this might not, you know, resonate with them, but they know 50% of their friends, it's going to resonate with them at some point. So this is stuff that needs to get out there because we really need to repair and even be preventative when we are starting this process.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's something that I feel very strongly about is sharing my experience and sharing from a realistic perspective that I think there's this idea when you go through divorce, there's a lot of shame. You know, there's a lot of shame in our culture around getting divorced. And so it's silencing. And I don't think we should be silenced. I think that we should speak up about how difficult this system is, how the family court system honestly is not really supporting anyone. Everyone walks away a loser. And that's not a great system. And we can do better, you know, and there are a lot of people that are working hard in and out of the court system to try to make it better. And I'm hopeful for a brighter future. But I think it's also important that we have conversations like this and share that, yeah, it's hard, and let's find tools and techniques that can help us get through it and survive it.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for your vulnerability and what you're doing in the world is amazing. Can you share with the audience how to find you, how to find this app? What do we do? All things Soul Kennedy, please.
Great. Yeah, the Best Interest app is available. You can just go to bestinterestapp.com. Or you can search out Best Interest. We're available on the Android Play Store or the iPhone App Store. Just search out Best Interest. We're there. And it's free. If you want to try it out, there's a free version that has a few less features than the paid version. And we also have a trial of some of the more advanced features. So I would love for you to give it a shot. And I'm always available, founder@bestinterest.app. If you want to share your feedback on how it's worked for you, I always love hearing feedback. So please do reach out. And Cheryl, thanks so much for having me on and helping me spread the word. And yeah.
This is such important work, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you listening. I appreciate your time. Remember, if you're sitting there wondering if you're failing, you're not, because you're listening to podcasts and you're asking the questions and you're reading the books. So you are still in the game. So thank you for listening. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time. Before you go, I really want you to know something. I'm not just a podcaster. I'm a speaker, a published author, and the founder of Insight to Impact. I'm an educational strategist and family advocate with over 25 years of experience helping families and schools support teenagers from diagnosis to IEPs, to interpreting assessments, to high school transitions, and beyond. This podcast, Parenting Teens Advice Redefined for Today's World, is part of my mission to help parents understand schools, support their teens, and feel heard and seen at the table. If today's episode helped you, please subscribe or follow the show, share it with another parent, and leave a review. It truly helps families find the support, and I'm very grateful when you do these things. And if your teen is struggling in school, navigating a new diagnosis, or you need help preparing support at school, you can work with me directly through educational consulting or my 90-day advocacy program. Just visit CherylPankhurst.com to learn more and to book a complimentary consultation to see if I can help. I know parenting is frickin' hard, but if you're listening to podcasts, if you're reading the books, if you're looking for answers, you are not failing because you're still trying. You do not have to figure this out alone. I got you, and we'll see you next week.